Welcome to The Next Human. My name's Arav. Today I'm joined by Dr. Avanish Mishra, a life sciences executive, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Arav. My pleasure.
And yeah, so let's get started. The first kind of question I like to ask is, what's your life story, and what paths did you take to reach the level of success you've reached today?
So my life story definitely starts in Mumbai, or Bombay, as it was called when I was growing up there. And one of the things that I've always done is followed my heart. And things have perhaps taken time, but eventually I've gotten to what I wanted to achieve, sometimes through a scenic route. So when I was in high school, I was becoming very clear that I preferred biology to mathematics. So I was going to pursue something in life sciences. And I ended up in pharmacy college in Bombay. And when I was in pharmacy college, towards the junior year, it started becoming obvious to me that I enjoyed reading business magazines more than I enjoyed reading peer-reviewed journals. So that kind of started giving me an idea of my path was probably going to be more in business management rather than in research and lab work.
Yeah.
And then I should perhaps pursue graduate studies as such. When I reached the other goal I had set for myself was that I wanted to be, and that was just very random, but just for the sake of goal setting, I wanted to be vice president of marketing in a pharma company by 38 in India. Okay, that's a goal that I set for myself. And for me to achieve that, there were two paths in front of me. One was to take a sales job in pharma sales right after college, do that for a year or 2 years, come back, get my MBA, and then go back into marketing, and then rise in a career there. The second option was to take a plunge and try to get into US and then play the major leagues, corporate headquarters, world headquarters of the large pharma companies. Both paths opened up for me. I did get a very good job in sales with one of the top companies in India, which was Glaxo at that time, now GSK. And I also got into a program called Pharmacy Administration, which was for me, who could not afford to go to college here, or especially didn't know much about the business school landscape. Nobody from my family had been in the US before. Seemed like I could get a full aid as well as take courses in the business school for MBA, that are MBA equivalent, and get my footing here. So at that stage in your life, your risk appetite is tremendous because you don't know what you don't know. And I took the plunge. I got into multiple schools, but the only school that funded me fully, which I could afford, was a school of pharmacy for the state of Louisiana, which was in Monroe, Louisiana. And so I got on the plane and traveled outside of India for the first time. Came to this country with 2 bags and a handbag and had $750 that the Reserve Bank of India would allow any student to take outside of India. So I came here. It was extremely a big contrast from Bombay. It is a small town of 100,000 people. And so initially it got a lot used to. I had to get used to it. But then I started enjoying that. And as I was doing this program, I got to pursue what I want to do, which is business. And then towards the third, fourth year of my PhD program, a new field emerged called pharmacoeconomics, or health economics and outcomes research, in the space of world drug development, where basically now the governments that are paying for the drugs, we're asking the pharma companies that show us the value of your drug. Why should we pay for it? Why should we give you a premium? And it was the early days in 1990s when this debate started and this discipline came about. So I was one of the first hires at Pfizer in R&D and Pfizer overall in the space of health economics outcomes research. So that gave me a really good profile. I worked in R&D for 4 years. I was on the core development team of Viagra, where I developed the efficacy measure. And then I moved to headquarters. But at that time, my goal I must say, when I left India, my goal was to be a country manager of India for a pharma company. So I started training myself for that. And for me to, it was important to get to marketing then. So I got into New York headquarters. So I achieved another goal of mine, which was at the world headquarters of a large pharma company. And I got there, I did market access and then moved to US marketing. And after doing 5 years of US marketing, the management sent me for a sales rotation, which is a very important function. If you, especially if you want to become a general manager, sales and marketing are very important functions to know. I did that for 3 years, and then I became the chief of staff for the Asia president, which is a position where you typically learn from a very senior leader how to manage P&L, how to manage enterprise. And it's a very fast growth 18-month stint. So I did that for 16 months, and then I was sent to Japan to head up marketing and also to build and run a successful generics business with Pfizer. And by this time, I was running a P&L which was very large. So I decided that I had to forego my ambition of being a country manager of Pfizer India because I'd already managed a much larger business. And maybe it was time to explore outside of Pfizer because now I'd been at Pfizer for 22 years.
Yeah.
So then I joined Gilead in a strategic planning function in liver disease and with the help of a Pfizer friend. And then another Pfizer friend came calling and asked me if I would take the risk of moving into pharmaceutical services business. Basically, what we do is we provide services to pharma companies. So we do the clinical trials. So for example, PPD, the company I joined, we did the Moderna's vaccination program. We did Gilead's remdesivir program. We conducted the research.
Wow.
So that's where we are contract research organizations. So that's where I am. And now also I'm just pursuing building a real world data business within this business. And that's what I'm focused on at this time. So that's my journey so far. So you can see I've done various things. It has allowed me to understand from every angle the business.
Can I just ask like a kind of a side question, but you mentioned earlier you set like a personal goal for yourself, to work in a global headquarters of like a big pharma company. You said by 38. Is that like, was that just like a kind of a ballpark like year?
I think my goal of being a VP marketing by 38 was a ballpark.
Sorry.
I did become head of marketing for Japan for Pfizer. And by the time I was 42, 43. So I did achieve that part 5 years later, but much bigger role. Pfizer, Japan is the second largest country for Pfizer. So
yeah, I mean, so wow, you've like worked in obviously like a number of different positions in different companies. Just wondering, do you have like a kind of like a personal favorite that like you really enjoyed, like one of your roles or something, even if it wasn't like your longest one or something, it's just something you like much enjoyed doing or something?
I mean, all the roles were building blocks for me to be able to run a business. And I think one thing that I would say is in young life, every milestone, and I call them milestone, not goals. Okay. Every milestone, like for right now, the next milestone for you is to get into a good college. Right? Yes, right now it's a goal, but also it's a milestone in the larger life. And every milestone seems big, but we evolve as we grow. Right. So first, my goal was to be VP of marketing in India. Then that became being a country manager in India for a large pharma company. Then that became running a business. And now my goal really is to build things of value that actually impact the health outcomes for humanity. So as I'm growing, my goals are becoming larger. Now, to answer your question, which role did I enjoy the most? I think the one that I enjoy the most is running a business. Because I have all the building blocks that make me a bit of a unique person, because I understand the business from multiple angles. And I love running a business. I love leading people. I really enjoy it. I get all my energy from my teams.
Yeah, I mean, so like on the topic of like goals and milestones, do you have like kind of one like major goal that you're like hoping to achieve, or is it just like you have a goal and then you achieve it and then you start looking forward to the next goal or something like that, or you have like one overall goal?
I would say my one goal really would be to tell you that as much value I can create. I enjoy bringing, commercializing uh, breakthroughs, you know.
Yeah.
So when I was advisor also, Viagra was first kind, first of a kind drug.
Hmm.
But then I was marketing director for Lyrica for US. I launched the fibromyalgia indication, which is also the first drug ever to be approved for that condition.
Yeah.
Similarly, when I was at Gilead, I was building a NASH market.
Hmm.
So I always like to build something like at the frontier of something,
Yeah.
making a difference where nothing is available. So I
Hmm.
think that is something that I always would like to continue to do. And eventually, I would like to be able to advise multiple entrepreneurs
Hmm.
uh, who can benefit from all my experience and all my knowledge. That would be the ultimate thing for me in sunsetting of my career.
Yeah, I mean that's great. Um, and this is kind of like a side question also, but just kind of like, in like today's setting, what are you kind of most like what are you trying to like look at next is kind of what I'm asking. Like, um, you're saying be on like the new frontier of something. Like what are you kind of thinking this is going to be like the next big thing, basically?
I mean, I think if I look at the landscape of real world, I mean, the life sciences itself,
Mm,
right? I think the mRNA technology that was around for a long, long time. I mean, I remember when I was in R&D, I had friends who were scientists who were working on that, but it really came to fruition under the stress of COVID.
mhm.
I think that holds a lot of promise.
Yeah.
So synthetic biology is becoming very big. But also, what we are seeing is that with the amount of data we are generating,
Mhm.
right, with the advancement in science that we're having, and the advantage of the computational power that we are having,
Mhm.
combined with our knowledge of AI, I think these forces are converging, and they're going to revolutionize how we look at life sciences and medicine and life in 5, 10 years time. Already, we are seeing huge leaps thanks to AI and data in how fast science is progressing.
Mhm. Yeah, do you think like it's gonna be kind of new like startups and stuff at kind of like the like new frontier of this basically like the push like leading the charge, or it's gonna be kind of like one big effort like collective from like the universities and research and stuff, and then companies, and kind of where do you see like industry or um research, or like what do you think?
I think the model is, where whatever is highly exploratory is still being done in academia,
Mhm.
and is it's even the academia has gotten smart, right? They're spinning out companies with stake in it.
Yeah.
So academic work that can be commercialized remains definitely a lot of innovation comes out of academia and government funded work.
Mhm.
So that is very true. That will continue to happen that way. Uh, but I think you can. I would not say there's just one big force that is happening. I think there's a many smaller pieces that together are changing our lives. So the one piece that I'm working with right now is real world data.
Mhm.
Okay, and real world data are any data that are collected outside of clinical trials. So there's no constraint on those data. So your variables, when you go to your doctor takes notes, puts those into EMR systems.
Mhm.
Right, all these are real world data, the census data. But what is happening is these data are going to allow us to uncover things that we've not been able to do through clinical trials.
Mhm.
So one, for example, a very big focus that became obvious in COVID also was diversity, right? Most of the drug development is done with Caucasian population.
Mhm.
And Caucasian population is only 15% of the world population, right?
Yeah.
So the drugs that are being developed in Caucasian population and then being generalized to 85% of the world.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example, which is a favorite of mine. My old company, Pfizer's drug Lipitor, it's only available in a 5 milligram dose in Japan. Everywhere else, it is given as a starting dose of 10 milligrams, twice that much, right? Why? Because Japan insisted on having studies done with local Japanese population
Mhm.
to understand the impact of the drug. So just imagine everywhere else in the world, people are probably getting overdrugged, right? And
Yeah.
especially you talked about innovation. As we move more and more towards precision medicine,
Mhm.
right, where genetics is becoming very important,
Yeah.
individual differences are becoming very important. And if we don't do an inclusive trial, we will leave a whole swath of population behind in that advancement, in that innovation.
Mhm.
So that is going to be a very big challenge, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that real world data can do is when the drugs are developed, you can see the real world effectiveness in individual populations and then maybe adjust how the drug is to be used
Mhm.
and which drug works better for African Americans, perhaps, which drug works better for Indians, right?
Yeah.
What dose works better for Indians? What dose works better for Chinese, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of nuances that are missing in currently, because we are generalizing a very small sample size to large part of humanity, that will not be happening.
Yeah. That's great. Do you think with that challenge also comes like the kind of expansion of like access to healthcare? Do you think that um kind of like that real world data solutions will also kind of impact that and you kind of like expand access to healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, we have to. We
Mhm.
have no choice, right? We have to. I mean, currently there's so many, even in the US, there is so much health disparity,
Mhm.
you know? I mean, I
Yeah.
think the minorities that are disproportionately impacted by many diseases are not getting the best of healthcare.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and
I
I
mean, that's
think
well
so.
documented.
Mhm. And so like what you're saying is that that these problems are, are being solved and they will be solved. Um, and I mean like that's what you're working towards, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, the real world data is one way,
mhm.
right? And I think, as you know, the advancement that we've made, cardiovascular disease used to be the biggest killer in the
Mhm.
70s, right? We don't hear that much anymore, right? People are living longer.
Mhm.
As people are living longer, now we're seeing more neurological disorders,
Yeah.
right? So that remains a frontier that is unsolved, the
Mhm.
brain. We are seeing that many types of cancer are now not as life-threatening as they used to be.
Mhm. Yeah.
But we still see many types of cancer like pancreas, liver cancer are still devastating, are still very life-threatening. So there's a lot of room left for just pure innovation, but also there's a lot of room left for innovation for humanity, so everybody gets good healthcare,
Mhm.
appropriate healthcare.
Yeah, and I think like what you're saying is that everything, is there's like kind of like different paths, but everyone is kind of aiming for the same goal of people can live like happier, healthier, longer lives. And um yeah, and making sure like everyone can do that, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think so. That's the thing. That everyone, right? I mean, there are certain innovation that is going to continue to help the advanced world, but
Mm.
we cannot take our eye off the innovation that needs to bring the rest of the humanity forward as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as a cost of, for example, the other big innovation is the sequencing, right? Illumina and other companies, Thermo Fisher, the sequencing world. The cost of sequencing is coming down.
Mm.
So as technology is evolving, as we're achieving scale, the costs are coming down. That is making sure that a lot of these technologies are being deployed in poorer countries, in poorer communities. So those advances are trickling down, thankfully.
Mm. That's good. Um, and yeah, so I mean, we were talking about precision medicine earlier, and obviously, like, there's very big problem with trying to like scale precision medicine because of how like how specific it is to like individuals and to populations. Um, but so like, what would you say, kind of the direction that it's going? It will be, obviously it's kind of like the one of the next big things. So how, kind of like, what direction is it going?
I mean, I think one way the precision medicine is definitely going to improve the outcomes overall, right?
Mm,
Uh, Let me just back up and tell you the example. So
mm,
most of the drugs we develop, oftentimes, they're what we call placebo-corrected efficacy. So when you're doing clinical trials, you put people on placebo and you put people on active drug.
mm,
The active drug has 50% responders, people who respond to the treatment, right?
mm,
Placebo oftentimes can be as high as 20, 25%, or even higher sometimes in some diseases,
mm,
right? Which are more subjective. Uh, so the difference between placebo and the active drug often tends to be 25 to 30%, which means only 25 to 30% of people were actually benefiting from this drug.
mm.
But we were giving it to 100% of the people,
Yeah.
right? And I think that is where precision medicine will make it more efficient.
Mm,
That I don't need to give you drug X if I know that you're not going to respond to drug X. I need to give you drug Y because I
yeah.
know you'll respond to drug Y. So I don't need to experiment.
Mm,
That is also precision medicine. Yes, it will make unit price higher because of the scalability. But you know what? Eventually, if we can get to larger populations with affordable medicine, I think
mm.
the scale can be achieved.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, it's not the perfect answer to your question, but
Yeah, I mean, definitely, um, like demonstrates how precision medicine is going to kind of advance.
yeah, because
Um,
precision medicine is a very broad term. People
yeah.
think of precision medicine and they think of cell therapy and gene therapy mainly.
Mm,
But precision medicine can also be improving the targeting of all drugs,
mm.
you know?
Yeah. Um,
And that is where also real world data can help, right?
mm,
Knowing which old drug works better in which population.
mm. Yeah, I mean, that's all great. And I think that's about like it I have today, but there's like, one question I like to ask at the end of every interview, and it's like, what is one piece of advice you'd give to young people, trying to make it in the world of medicine and healthcare?
I think the advice I would give people is always, first of all, play to your strength,
Mm,
right? Follow your heart.
yeah.
Uh, it's important to ask yourself those questions of which subjects do I enjoy the most and which take a lot of effort out of me to sit in
Mm,
a class and survive the class or survive the test.
mm,
And play to your strengths, right? Yes, we should push ourselves in areas that we find challenging so that we're building that muscle and keeping that muscle active. But I do think that you will succeed only when your strength, your ambition, your aspiration will be aligned. And it will be aligned with what society is willing to pay,
mm,
right? So that is one advice I would give. The other advice is try to get as many diverse experiences as possible in your teens and 20s.
mm.
That will really help you hone in to find what you're best at, what you really enjoy doing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thank you for the advice, and thank you again for agreeing to be here today for this interview. I learned a lot, and I think I had a lot of fun. So yeah.
Thank you, Arav. You were very thoughtful and insightful questioning.